Garganacl. Well, there's 2 Tauros in Lorenzo's deck, so there's going to be a lot of denying of that, you know, cut of the retreat from the Knuckle. So it's going to be super important to see if Lorenzo in this matchup can get to time them properly.
Yes.
And also get into the spot of taking out Alessandro's setup before it gets to an eventual point.
A big part about winning with control is knowing what's in your opponent's range, knowing how many outs they have to certain combinations. And I think seeing 2 copies of Professor Turo's scenario is already a bit of a jump scare for Alessandro that he is not going to enjoy seeing.
Yeah, and also the cards like Neo Upper Energy,
Yep.
Jamming Tower, where we're talking about these luxurious capes going to be able to boost the Garganacl's HP. Well, if you throw down a Jamming Tower, that's not going to work for you.
Yeah, this could be a really interesting build. I feel like this is more similar to something like Henry Brand has been playing over in Melbourne, where it's that Neo Up Energy. We have seen it in Europe as well, of course, to a pretty far finish in one of our special events. So this is just another way to be playing the Dragapult right now. It is a sort of straightforward Dragapult with just the chaps on the bench, the basic Pokemon, no other real attacking threats outside of Blood Moon or Saluna. But rather than going heavy on tools that we've seen before and adding in Genesect to ace nullify the opponent, instead it's adding in Jamming Tower and going down the Neo Upper route. What do you think about that?
I think it's a very interesting way of doing it. I've been doing it myself a bit with Dragapult Dusknoir, where that has been working wonderfully, where you can, well, you don't need to be attaching. Oftentimes Dragapult struggles when it can't be attaching energies every single turn for the first like 3 to 4 turns of the game, where with the Neo Upper Energy, you can just explode that into play, your opponent thinking, well, there's no energy in play, then you have to buddy you again. Nope. Don't need to do that when you're playing the Neo Upper Energy. Then again, you have to hit it, and if you're playing no call risk, you're leaning into having to draw it off Iono or your Festivity or Cloaks, whatever can get you cards in that scenario.
And I feel like that again leads into the deck list of being jammer rather than having like EXP share and a bunch of tools. It looks like we're about to see some prize cards coming down for both our players. Now don't fret of any of the cards you see in Alessandro's, because he does play 2 copies of Redeemable Ticket to try and fix that situation. But already one of the Professor Turo scenario in Lorenzo's prize cards in the top right. It's winning in time, round number 6. We see the fist bump. And looks like Alessandro is going to be kicking things off and even has a fantastic lead, Jesper. Starts off with that Tatsugiri. Yeah,
Tatsugiri, a fantastic lead, even though Alessandro's going second. Going to be able to use the attract customers to potentially attract some supporters that he could be using on his turn 2 to get this setup going. As control decks always needs to, there's going to be a lot of setup pieces that needs to come down at some stages of the game. But having that fish out there is going to help you tons.
Brock is a handy customer to have for future turns. That's a great setup early. You may have already spotted those eagle-eyed among you a Feebas in hand for Alessandro. Now that's not going to have a Milotic EX in the list, but it does have the single prize mentally calm ability Milotic, which can prevent some Professor Turo, which is going to be an interaction we have to watch thoroughly throughout this set.
And it means that it puts pressures onto Lorenzo's 4 bosses orders that Lorenzo runs in his list and the free counter catches. Not that I think Alessandro's ever going to turn on Lorenzo Bruno's counter catches, but the 4 bosses orders.
I'd be surprised.
I would be too, honestly, mate. And it just means that the bosses orders has to target the Feebas, and that the Feebas, if it has to turn into Milotic, it has to be put into play very, very early to make sure that a turn-free Dragapult, which is the earliest window we typically see, because there's no rare candies, cannot knock out a Feebas or go for boss Milotic. So has to start that retreat like super, super early to make sure that we don't get into a situation where, the Feebas is going to get knocked out and we don't get to use the mentally calm ability at all.
We already see a Feebas hit the bench in addition to a very shiny Pidgey. And Alessandro has to be happy with that turn 1 setup, knowing he has a Brock scouting in hand for a future turn for additional Pokemon to be searched. Let's see what Lorenzo has access to. Immediately has the Buddy Buddy Poffin, one of the most important early game cards almost every deck can incorporate, because it can immediately grab 2 basic Pokemon with 70 hit points or less, and in this case that can give us great access to our Dreepy, and if we want some of our baby Pokemon, the likes of Budew and Cleffa could be great early game attacking threats, either to shut down some options from Alessandro if we go the Budew route, or if we go for Cleffa, we can Grasping draw up a huge hand size.
Yeah, but the issue with stuff like Cleffa, Monkey Dory in this matchup too, Latias even, is that it's super bad versus a card like Knuckle when you're using corner.
Yeah.
Because you have to Turo them up, and if there's a Milotic in play, a Monkey Dory, well, not a Monkey Dory perhaps, but a Latias in play as well, you just go corner that Latias, and it's going to be stuck there for the entirety of the game. So with Cleffa, thereby Lorenzo cannot go Cleffa in this game. Otherwise, Anacle's just going to go, I'm just going to sit and corner you for the rest of the game, mate.
Lorenzo is immediately attaching his Neo Upper Energy to Dreepy, which gives Alessandro firstly a lot of information, but also a target to remove energy, because he does play the Ruffian supporter in his deck, but Lorenzo is going to immediately use Ino for a fresh hand here. Also re-establishes Alessandro's as he does. Iono draws the same amount of cards as you have remaining prizes, and it forces the opponent to do the same while shoving the current hand to the bottom of both players' decks. It's a great early game consistency card. Already we see the Latias EX coming into play, Jesper. That allows us to move the Monkey Dory, but as you said, there's always a threat for later on. But first things first, let's use Itchy Pollen, deny the use of Rare Candy for Alessandro.
Yeah, and deny the glue that holds the Alessandro's deck together. And if we can deny that glue, we might not even get to see Anacle'll using corner, so that might just be a moot point in that case. Again, we're always talking in this matchup, the non-controlled Ruffian already.
That's a spicy customer right there. The Ruffian supporter can discard a tool and a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. And being able to deny your opponent's A-Spec at some point in the game is going to be devastating. Does Alessandro have any other supporting supporters, helping him draw cards, I should say?
There's only Arven, and I think there's
time to Ruffian.
Index. There's time to Ruffian, get rid of that Neo Upper Energy, and unfortunately Lorenzo does not play any ways to get back that Neo Upper Energy. And yeah, I do like the way that Ruffian stands in the card art. They'd be like, yeah, what you got?
What do you think about that, huh? Dealt your ace back before you got any value at all. And that does buy some wiggle room for Alessandro as we pass the action back over to Lorenzo. Looks like outside of the Ruffian, Itchy Pollen has done its job. The first Recon directive is online. You're going to hear this ability throughout the weekend because Dragapult's one of the most popular decks in the room, and a big reason for that is the value of this Recon directive ability from the Stage 1 Dracloak here, allowing you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You pick one to go to the hand, the other goes to the bottom. Having access to more of your deck, accumulating these combos is a massive reason why Dragapult is so strong right now.
Yeah, and we were talking about the control decks wanting to buy as much time as possible. Right here, we did see the Ruffian do that, but if Lorenzo gets an attachment down, the Team Star Grunt can also be used to draw even more time out. The Team Star Grunt, of course, saying that you're able to pick one energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon, put it on top of their deck. Well, it means that we can just reset that clock constantly until we are able ourselves to do that. Of course, it's only one Team Star Grunt, so just being able to take a couple of turns, but Ruffian plus Star Grunt means 2 turns. You delay Lorenzo from attacking, which is immense when you're talking a matchup where Dragapult can be knocking out Pidgey and Feedbass on bench. It gives you the time to get Pidgeotto, then get Pidgeot, and then actually get an attempt to set up.
Lorenzo is going to Iono both players once again, and it's going to find one of those basic energy Jesper for his Dracloak, so is again representing some Phantom Dive shenanigans on the future turn, if he can evolve up and find a Fire Energy or a Luminous, but will once again maintain the Itchy Pollen and keep this Pidgey at a Pidgey if he can.
Doesn't look too good from the hand initially from Alessandro. Has to go attract customers, and said attracting a Star Grunt would be nice, but the boss's orders. Unfortunately, the entirety of Lorenzo's field has free retreat besides the Dracloak.
Yeah.
But the Dracloak only needs, well, a Fire Energy and a Dragapult. Should be a Dragapult that's attacking, so the boss is not going to do much if you're looking forward to a boss perhaps stalling a bit here since, well, there's no corner action as well. So, but we do see the Knuckle. But there's no
energy in the hand?
No.
Okay. So we can't get too fruity just yet. A lot of items clogged up thanks to the Itchy Pollen from Lorenzo. It's an unwanted customer in the boss's orders right now. Not too much help. Just has to pass things over.
It's not always you get to pick your own customers, but here, unfortunately,
the customer's always right, Jesper.
Yeah, in this case, I would argue otherwise.
Good point, yeah.
But we do see like the double Dracloak going, and now Lorenzo has his engine set up. Much could be wished for Alessandro. That's definitely not a setup engine, and there's no reason for Lorenzo not to keep up an Itchy Pollen unless we get to remove both Pidgey and Feebas from play, or even just the Knuckle too. So Lorenzo's buying himself time by just using Itchy Pollen over and over and over again since, well, Alessandro with all these item cards in hand, which might have been telegraphed to Lorenzo at this point by playing such a weak turn from Alessandro's side that he could just be like, well, you're drawing 1 card a turn, plus you're attracting a bad customers at this stage. What about that I'll just let you do some bad business?
Speaking of bad business, I think Lorenzo has Luminous Energy and Jacques in hand. So we'll be able to fire off a Dragapult Phantom Dive if he wishes. Here is the Jacques supporter coming in, which means we certainly will grab another Dracloak and Dragapult EX to the hand. And we're going to start taking some prizes here, Jesper, by the looks of things.
Yeah, Joe, would you go for Feebas or would you go for Pidgey?
It's a tough call for multiple reasons. For me right now, if I'm Lorenzo, I'm fearing Milotic EX. That's actually a really annoying wall if my deck is really focused on terrestrial attacking Pokemon. But you also know that Pidgeot EX is the lifeblood of the deck, and as soon as you release the Itchy Pollen, it's easy for Alessandro then to get a rare candy combination. So both good options. I feel like I'm more terrified of Feebas right now, to be honest with you, but that might be what Alessandro's banking on.
But what about if you take another turn of Itchy Pollen and try to hit into one of your forward boss's orders instead then?
Yeah,
I know there's been one that's discarded off Ultra Ball, but then you would still have 3 left, but decides to forego that. So yeah, Joe, make a call. Feebas or Pidgey?
I'm going Feebas, but it looks like Lorenzo's going Pidgey. I understand why, both great choices. This is the issue here. You have to fear both Milotic in a way. I'm worried about the EX, I'm worried about the single prize option, but 5 counters can go onto the Pidgey, so just 1 damage counter can go onto the Knuckle.
Yeah, and it sets up so if Alessandro does not evolve to Feebas.
Oh, the Pidgey auto draw. Oh, it's a concession!
Concession already? No! This might just be the... Well, we have to beat this. Okay, in Stockholm, Alessandro scooped after the first game the whole entire match because he did not have enough time left to play. One thing we do have to remember with Control, it takes time for them to win.
Yeah.
So Alessandro, as soon as he sees the writing on the wall, has to recognize, okay, not going to go anymore.
Those customers, not the best. Ruffian slowed down Lorenzo that little bit, but the boss's orders was certainly not what he was looking for. Any Arven, any Brock Scouting would have been a far preferable card to see. And as soon as the only sort of engine Pokemon left the board, the Tatsugiri and the Pidgey wiped out all in one go thanks to this key Jacques supporter from Lorenzo. It meant Alessandro was left with nothing and actually lost on board thanks to his low hit point Pokemon.
Exactly. As could be said, Alessandro's store started out so great with so many great customers, the Brox, the Ruffian, and it turned into just being bosses that went through this shop's door and unfortunately not being good enough with the employees. Well, not going to be able to get their salary out of whatever happened to board.
It's gone bankrupt.
Yes, indeed. And now we're looking into this game. Alessandro has to get more pieces. Wants to hit that Pidgeotto a turn before so we can make sure that does not fall to the Dragapult. And yes, get a bit more time to set up initially to make sure that we do have time to use it to our customers more. We do, on top of that, have time to actually get our Milotic, our Pidgeotto, and then our Pidgeot into play to make sure we actually get to play the game at all.
It's exceptionally rare to see Control scoop things up when they have to, but at least it's given Alessandro 40 or so minutes to try and claw back a second game and at least bring this game to a tie if possible. My fear for Alessandro coming into this second game is that he's not even seen either of the Professor Turret scenario from Lorenzo. Those are still rooting around in the deck as we see the fist bump. We're getting into game number 2 here, and Lorenzo, it looks like, has been forced to go first in this second game. Alessandro wants additional outs for supporters.
But not just one Buddy Puffin, Joe. I do think I see 2 Buddy Puffins of Lorenzo, just playing one at a time. We get to have a wild moment here in a second. Once that first Buddy Puffin's played, going ahead, looking through the deck, searching his deck, wants to get the Buddy online next turn, but wants to get multiple Dreepy, around about 2 to 3 Dreepies out if we can. And if my eyes don't deceive me, Joe, I do think it was 2 Buddy Puffins that were in there. So triple Dreepy and Budju coming in.
And honestly, for Lorenzo, it's business as usual. He won the game on the spot as soon as he announced Phantom Dive, essentially. So let's try and build back up towards those 2 stage 2s. There's the second copy of Buddy Puffin. Everything you want to see if you're Lorenzo, because more Dracloak is certainly welcome. And trying to find Budju, it worked so well for denying Pidgeot in that game number 1. It's once again going to be pulled out of the deck straight away here.
And the entirety of the reason why you want to go second as Dragapult is to be able to set up.
Yeah.
But yo, it doesn't matter if you're going first and you open double Buddy Puffin. It's essentially the same as going second in this case. No need to use Brock Scouting. No need to use Arven. I don't care about that. I'm just going to go double Buddy Puffin. And if Lorenzo can follow up with something like Jacques next turn, wow.
There we go. The suite of 4 basics already found. There's energy in the hand as well. It's a Luminous going on to a Dreepy, and we're passing things over to Alessandro, who is peeking at his... a Brock Scouting.
Otherwise, that hand looks super bad and was just fanning himself a little bit. Some cold air, please.
It is hot in here. It is hot in here, especially when you have a bad hand like that.
And yeah, but the question is just, you need more of the Brock. Yeah, that hand besides the Brock was not playable at all besides the accompanying flute, but it doesn't truly matter at this stage. Alessandro has to start getting these basic Pokemon out, but has to be afraid of, what do I even get out at this stage to make sure I can set up? Because this Brock is very short-sighted. Gets to get the 2 basic Pokemon, but then what next turn?
I think once again might have to employ the use of the attract customers from Tatsugiri. That might be one of his only options here. It has been thumb to the front.
But then again, that doesn't get your Pidgey, that doesn't get your Feebas into place straight away, and then you kind of have to start hitting Team Starkrun or Ruffian to kind of draw some time to make sure both of your Feebas and your Pidgey doesn't get knocked out at the same time.
Yeah, it's all long-term here. You can't think that this one Brock solves every issue. That's the problem that Alessandro is having to go through. Instead, it's going to be the grasping draw from Cleffa. Use the items before you lose them.
As it looks from a hand, he can get to play at least 2 cards, being the Pal Pad, get back to Brock, which is good to draw it for next turn, gets out the Feebas and the Pidgey if you need to. Then, you could also get to play the accompanying flute, potentially grabbing something like the Blood Moon or Saluna.
That would be a dream.
That would be a dream. Or the Cleffa would also be very good, because since that's also a Pokemon, you can lock into the active spot for a few turns. So the accompanying flute,
5 cards revealed, no Pokemon among them. If you find a basic, you can force it into play onto your opponent's bench. Not found for Alessandro. Unfortunate, a tough break for him. Will he be grasping for 2? Looks like he's not going to play the Pal Pad in this instance and just take the 2 cards.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Lorenzo's deck not playing along with the orchestra here with the accompanying flute, and we just get to go back into Lorenzo's turn. Again, name of the game, get these Dragapults out. Make sure this engine gets going. Lorenzo had no issue of getting his deck's engine running. But yeah, Alessandro's kind of needing some engine parts, honestly.
Yeah, step 1 complete for Lorenzo. First Dracloak online. Now we see a Brock scouting on his side. One of the reasons why this supporter is seeing so much play is thanks to its flexibility. You can grab 2 basic Pokemon or choose to grab 1 evolution. In this instance, Lorenzo is cherry-picking a couple of basics. That will allow him to move Monkey out of the active and initiate the Itchy Pollen lock.
And what's really good about grabbing a card like Hawlucha in this case, gets to put both the Fescentipede and the Latias within a Phantom Dive range later. And we could be, before the Feebas gets into play, we could be talking about, potentially Turo, let's say Budew in that case, and then get to put these 2 within range, or even putting the bench Pokemon to range. It's a really good card to use multiple times for these Dragapult decks, especially when you're not running Dusknoir. And we do at least get to see the customers getting in here. It's going to be Brock scouting, finding 2 additional basic Pokemon is going to be put on the bench. And yeah, we named it. Feebas, Pidgey.
Feebas, Pidgey, yeah. This is all the things we wanted on the previous turn, but we couldn't do that in good conscience, knowing the hand gave us nothing else. So having the grasping draw did find us the Tatsugiri, which then found us Brock, and now we have not only the Feebas and the Pidgey, but also the Tatsugiri, hopefully helping out again on a future turn. So Alessandro has gone the long way around, but has eventually found the basics that he requires, and is at least grasping onto a few pieces here. The issue is a lot of them are item cards, so he has to really just still bank on Lorenzo having slower turns.
Yeah, and you were talking about it being item cards, and I see Lana's Aid, not very good. Sterosic Machinations, that's a late game card you kind of need to use to swing your opponent's resources, and we're just looking at Lorenzo playing like he wants to. Dracloak in, Dracloak 1, Dracloak 2. Get me the cards I need to make sure I can just take out the setup. And if we're in a situation where Lorenzo hits 1 of the 4 boss's orders in their deck, hits the Dragapult, we may just spell doom early. I do think I'm seeing a boss here, Joe. But it's going to be another Brock scouting.
I think did we have the Dragapult EX? That might have been one of the only missing pieces.
I did think I saw it, but as Lorenzo here, he knows that there's not going to be a Pidgeot coming into play, which means that if you get to use Budju onto the Tatsugiri, it also sets it up later, so you actually don't need to be using Hawlucha later to set that up on the bench. So it's a really good play, and I think I did see the Dragapult here, but he has all the time in the world to set up this, especially when the Itchy Pollen's going on.
We're going to toss away the counter catcher. We know that's not going to be too handy in a matchup like this. Faraji is already in the hand, but now we can continue to power up Dracloak. I see no reason why you shouldn't attach 2 to one of those Pokemon. Typically, you have to be concerned about aggressive boss's orders, KOs, but not so in this instance, especially when we're evolving up. And actually, we're going in, Jesper. And we once again trying to take out Tatsugiri and Pidgey in the one foul swoop here.
And we do get to do that, and 10 damage onto the Festivity, setting that up. But here it means that we can actually get into a spot where, yes, our last 100% is not great, but... again!
Alessandro sees the funny side.
I mean, it's amusing for sure, but it's very unfortunate for Alessandro. Every single time that Pidgey gets taken out by defensive dive, yeah, we were top taking Pidgeotto, and yeah, Alessandro needs help here immensely. There's a Precious Trolley, Arvin, and Nestball. All of them are really good to get set up. Would have loved these cards a bit before, though.
Yeah, with one of the Pidgeys in the prizes as well. You can't even trolley for a Pidgey here. You have to try and find some other basics. The Knackle, perhaps.
Yeah, but the question is Knackle and what? You could have perhaps gone Arvin for the ticket and then played the trolley.
That's true.
Depending on whether or not Alessandro actually checked for how many Pidgeys there were in their deck. It just looks at off the trolley that there's no real good basic targets right now in the deck, and yeah, it's going to be super difficult. Not even an attachment from hand from Alessandro currently looks like, so I'm struggling to see what kind of line we're taking here. Double Knackle though, so it means that we can pull off the Latias into the active. And one thing that's really funny in this matchup is that Latias has fighting resistance, which usually is pretty good. But when Knackle does 20 on corner, Latias takes 0 damage. So if you can get Milotic in play, pull off the Latias to the active, Knackle says corner for 0 damage, you can't retreat, but the Churros can't be played at the same time, meaning that the game is essentially over if Alessandro gets to assemble that combo. It just has to happen once, and then the game's over.
Well, we do still have a means to Pidgey via this Night Stretcher. That's another way of going about things. But as I said, Jesper, no energy in this hand means we can't initiate corner just yet.
Yeah, but we need energy plus
Counter Catcher or Boss's Orders, one of those combination cards.
Yeah, and
the Milotic.
Yeah, it's going to be like Ultra Ball here. Can go ahead and get the Milotic, but then we're thinking about a case where, well, if Dragapult then stays in the active spot, there can be just a Boss's Orders being found here.
Yeah.
And it makes it way more difficult, and could potentially search a Luxurious Cape to make sure that this Pidgey does not get taken out on the bench again by giving it, 100 extra HP. But yeah, Joe, again, it is so difficult when you're in Alessandro's shoes that it's this fragile deck at early stages until you set up this retreat lock, and then you're okay.
Like you said, there was a checkmate possible. We just didn't have access to Pidgeot to get it all together, and the Festivity EX didn't find the pieces required. Garganacl going to have to hit the discard pile with this Ultra Ball here. The attempt has to be made with Milotic, I feel. You can Luxurious Cape the Milotic to push it out of range of a easy Boss's Orders KO.
Yeah, and you can still, then if the Knackles get knocked out, yeah, we do see the Milotic, so has to forego. Like, you don't really care about Pidgeot in this match. You really just care about getting the corner lock on, because then you will have any single amount of turns that you want in the game. And with there being a half an hour left, even if you get the corner lock going now, you still need to be very fast in drawing and using corner.
The good news is, once you're in that lock, you will literally draw a card, and hope for the best. There's the Luxurious Cape, buffing this Milotic up out of range of a Phantom Dive gusting play, that mentally calm ability, stating that your opponent's Pokemon in play and all cards attached can't be put into your opponent's hand. And we must stress that Lorenzo only uses Professor Turio's scenario to maneuver his Pokemon. That's currently shut down by the ability of Milotic. Lorenzo now actually going to take a read of this card and familiarize himself with it.
And it means effectively that Alessandro got to buy himself an extra turn with this Luxurious Cape, which is really good for his side of things. Milotic cannot be knocked out currently by any means from Lorenzo's board in one hit, which means that if Lorenzo just goes for attacking onto Cleffa, perhaps potentially taking out the Pidgey, that if Alessandro could get energy plus a means of gusting either Counter Catcher or Boss, then we would have this pretty easy checkmate to have.
Oh yes, but there's Jamming Tower in the hand. I believe there's a Boss's Orders plus Jamming Tower combination. Alessandro spent his turn building the Luxurious Cape Milotic. If we see this combo now from Lorenzo, it could be all crashing down for Alessandro.
Gets to take out both the Milotic and the Pidgey in that case, and really just gets to put his foot
one step away from 6-0.
Yeah, and we do see the Jamming Tower here,
if we're playing Jamming Tower, we have to take out the Milotic,
Yeah,
surely.
for sure. And we do get to see the boss's orders onto Milotic. Such a crucial moment in the game here, since, yeah, well, you can take out Milotic. You can even put damage on Garganacl. Not that it matters too much, but we definitely want to get to see, yeah, 50 on Pidgey, 10 damage extra can just be put onto Garganacl, setting that up. And even if Alessandro goes for counter catcher Latias and goes corner, Lorenzo can answer with one of the two Professor Turo scenario. And I know, Joe, like last turn, it looked pretty impossible if Lorenzo didn't pull off exactly that combo. But yeah, the tech inclusions from Lorenzo are really coming through importantly here.
This is devastating for Alessandro. The Jamming Tower, piecing it all together for Lorenzo. Alessandro has seen his additional 3 cards from Flip the Script. He's holding on to all the options he has available. Is there any wiggle room here for a get out of jail, even for a turn of wiggle room here?
It doesn't look like it. We've no Melodic in play. We don't get to like have a solid checkmate lock, and
we're picking up our cards.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be seeing the concession from Alessandro. Sees the writing on the wall. Unfortunately, another second time on stream in a row, we do see Alessandro picking up his cards, realizing, yeah, there's no way to win this game currently. But still, congratulations to Lorenzo Bruno. Really well thought out, really well played out. We get to see this Jamming Tower, the new upper energy played in Dragapult, which you don't see as often, and against, yeah, the godfather of control, Alessandro Cabemasgoli, and we do get to see the replay of game 1 here. Starting off with Badiou, getting the new upper energy attachment, and using the Ruffian to get some time away from Lorenzo, but at the end of the game, we did not get to see the whole combo setup from Alessandro. So we're talking about getting the combo setup needs to happen for the deck to work, getting these different pieces down. Feebas, Pidgey, not being able to find the evolutions. And finally, Dragapult coming out, taking out the lifeblood and glue that is Alessandro's deck from Pidgey.
And I love to see the patient and calm approach for Lorenzo. We saw him laughing along there, reading cards as he had to, and sort of just be aware that Alessandro at some point is going to have weird combinations in his deck that could cause headache. But as you said, Jesper, the way Lorenzo built his list, we didn't even have to see the Turo scenario come into effect because the Jamming Tower was such a big piece. And Lorenzo was diligent. This is into the second game now, at continuing to march through those Pidgey. Never allow Alessandro the option to Pidgey RTX, because that's when the combinations come together.
Yeah, and when the combinations don't cut together, we were talking about this turn where we get the Milotic into play. Can we see counter catcher? Can we see an attachment of energy? Unfortunately, it was quote-unquote just a luxurious cape. The Jamming Tower comes into play there, and the boss's orders onto Milotic, taking out both the Milotic and the Pidgey, and then afterwards we soon get to see Alessandro seeing it in his eyes and be like, yeah, that was all she wrote.
Yeah, that is a tough matchup for Alessandro. The supporter cards, the stadium cards, all of them created such a difficult situation. Alessandro having the light side of things, you know, when you play these controlling matchups, sometimes you can have a really favored time, and sometimes your opponent just has a list that is really difficult to get around. And in this case, it means that Lorenzo cruises to a 6-0 record.
Yeah, and cruising with a Dragapult list we don't see typically. We do see a lot of these slow Dragapult decks, but we don't see them just like this. Many supporters in play. Well, the Jacques Iono boss Turo, not seen very often. We typically see